brand second. Now, I wanted to do this episode because I saw a video that was very interesting. I watch a lot of, entrepreneur videos and motivational speakers and all that kind of good stuff. And I saw somebody talking about this exact concept, and I agreed with a lot of it, but I definitely disagreed with some of the things they were saying. So they were saying, focus on building revenue first. Don't worry about going way out of your way to build a brand. But they were saying, don't waste time on designing logos, building websites, perfecting your social media images. And while I understand where they were kind of going with that, I definitely disagree because I feel like those are the only things you should be spending time on before you start selling. However, it should be a very short amount of time, right? You shouldn't be spending more than a week, at the most, getting your logo, your website, all your systems set up there, as well as, your social media, getting the pages verified, all that kind of good stuff. To me, that's what you need before you start selling. And here's the key point is that's all you need before you start selling, right? So I do agree, revenue first before building a brand, but you need that bare minimum to get the revenue. And typically, especially if we're talking about an online product or service, we're talking about needing a website, some kind of landing page to send people to. We're talking about needing to have social media set up and either be making content or spending money on ads or both. And we're talking about, needing an actual logo that looks professional so that people are willing to pay you. So I do agree that it's so important to get to the revenue as opposed to trying to build a big brand and, having all these intangible things happen to be some kind of big brand. To me, those are the things that you need to focus on to get revenue. You need a nice looking logo, a nice looking website, nice looking social media that's all verified. And then you can go out there and actually start making sales. So, I wanted to have this episode on that to talk about revenue first as opposed to branding, but making sure that you're doing the things you need first to be able to make the revenue, right? And in most of our businesses, that's going to be websites, a nice logo, social media, then running ads for a lot of businesses, right? So those things are very important. If your business is based online and you're based on getting people to purchase something online, you need a nice website and a landing page for them to go to, and it needs to look professional. We had an episode last week about, making sure that people can trust you, that involving, both having a nice website and verified social media. That's a super shortcut to build trust. The other shortcut to build trust, again, great reviews, also things like joining, the Better Business Bureau and stuff. So those are things that I don't really consider branding. I would consider those, ways to build trust to be able to make revenue. Because here's the thing, a lot of the times with a brand new business, it's not easy to have the trust of people to actually pull the trigger. They might think your product or service is good, but they might not feel comfortable paying someone that they've never seen, that they don't know, that they've probably never spoken to, and a company that may not have any reviews or a strong online presence. So there's ways that you can battle that without having to say, oh, we need to do a big branding campaign. You can just take those shortcuts of, get some friends and family to give you some positive reviews, maybe join the Better Business Bureau. I explained last week that you start with an A+ rating. So although it is kind of expensive, it's a yearly cost, which isn't that bad if you were to break it down monthly, but it immediately gives you a level of trust, right? And none of that trust is going to work if your website doesn't look professional. None of that's going to work if your logo looks like a kid designed it, or an old logo, or it looks distorted. It looks like it was done in Microsoft Paint or whatever. So these things all go together hand in hand, right? The design, the logo, the website. And again, this is not something that should take a long time. So I don't want to confuse people saying, oh, you should spend all your time building your brand and stuff. I mean, we're talking about in an hour, you could have a, logo, website, all this kind of stuff. If you can't do it yourself, you could pay someone else to do it. So we want to make sure that we do the things necessary to get out there and start making the sales. But I do talk about all the time how, branding is not what you're going for unless you're already making a bunch of money. Maybe some certain types of businesses, you need a little bit more branding before you're making a ton of revenue, but that's usually not the case. I see people all the time, they want to sponsor events, or they want to throw an event, or they want to, get a billboard or something like that. But at the end of the day, those things aren't going to drive direct sales. And even if they did drive direct sales, you wouldn't be able to track it. So it doesn't actually do any good for your business model and business plan if you're not able to track it. And you don't know, was it the event you sponsored? Was it the billboard? Or was it just somebody searching your website? Or was it, you're not going to be able to tell where it came from. But with direct ads getting you direct sales, you can tell exactly where they came from. So I'm not saying buying a billboard is a waste of money, but if you're not already making revenue, then it's definitely a waste of money, because branding isn't going to do anything for you when you're not actually, building a steady source of revenue. So you want to just focus on those things where you're laser focused on, what do I need to do to drive revenue? What's the bare minimum that I need to be able to get somebody to purchase my product or service to drive revenue? And just be laser focused on that until you have your conversion rate down, your cost of customer acquisition down, and your conversion rate on what you're converting them as, and be able to then scale that up. And maybe when you have a lot more money, or you're trying to kind of get into a different stratosphere or different crowds, maybe you start sponsoring an event, or, doing a billboard. I've talked about in the past, nowadays they have the digital billboards, and they even have services where you can basically treat them like Facebook ads. You can just buy small amounts of inventory. They have maps that show you the different locations that they have digital billboards. So if your business would call for that, then maybe that's something you should do and look into eventually. But I have a hard time thinking of any businesses that would benefit right off the bat from doing things like billboards and sponsoring events and stuff like that. That's just pure branding plays. If you're a very large company, then that's a little bit different. But while you're starting up and while you're trying to get going, you want to focus on things that drive direct sales, and that drive sales that you can track and that where they came from, so that you can, increase that avenue and that channel to be able to make more and to scale it up. So, branding, that's all fine and dandy, but until we're where we need to be, we want to focus more on, direct sales where we can, track a return. Because at the end of the day, what really proves that a business works? It's customers, it's revenue, it's repeat buyers, right? That's a huge one. There's companies that can survive off of one-time customers. Some companies can survive for longer than others, but most companies can't survive if there's no repeat business. Because really what that's telling you is that the market is telling you that they're not satisfied with your product or service. Now, if it's a product or service they only need to buy one time, that's different. But if it's something where they, could and should be buying it multiple times, if you're not getting those repeat clients, that's kind of letting you know this is not really a real business that's going to continue, right? So, excuse me, that's what makes a business real. Customers, revenue, repeat buyers, and real results. And if you don't have those things, then what are you really branding, right? You're just branding some logo. And so I think the people who get really into branding too early are people who may be in it for the wrong reasons. They may be trying to be an entrepreneur because it sounds cool, because it feels cool, because they want to look cool, as opposed to wanting to actually be their own boss, roll up their sleeves, and build something that's great. Because if that's what you're looking to do, then, sponsoring events and billboards and general branding stuff is not the way to go. You should be laser focused on your business, your sales, and your customers, So Let's go ahead and take some questions here. Remember, we do take questions. You can send them to at Kyle Hiersche or at Founding Without Funding. You can also drop any questions you have live here in the chat because we do stream this on all the different platforms. So feel free to drop some questions. Now, quick note here. Remember, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to purchase the book if you're looking for help, starting or growing your business. Foundingwithoutfunding.com. The book can help you. If you're looking to have somebody else kind of do all the heavy lifting for you for your business, you can go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com and my team can actually do that for you. We can do everything from creating your LLC to setting up your logo, your website, your social media ads, all that kind of stuff. So yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com if you want to be a little bit more hands-off. If you want to be more hands-on, then go to foundingwithoutfunding.com and get the book that will help you do that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the question. So Tyler is asking, how simple can a business start? How simple can a business start? Very simple. You have a product and you need to sell it and you make a sale. That's how simple it is. You could, it could even be in real life, right? And then you kind of translate that into, a system and digital and having a logo and a website and all that kind of stuff. But starting a business is simply selling something. The second you sell something, you have a business. Now, you need to set up your paperwork. You need to come up with a name and a logo and a website and stuff like that. But that stuff is all very quick and easy nowadays. Very quick and easy. The real thing is, have you sold a product or service? Do you have something somebody's willing to pay for? That's what's important. That at that point, you have a business. You just don't have it structured yet, but you have a business. Ashley's asking, do I need a website before selling? Well, if you're selling something online, I feel that you do. Now, if you're selling something through a platform, maybe you're using like Shopify or something like that, then you don't necessarily need your own website. But I think most businesses, most products or services need their own website. And if you're selling something online, you probably want the landing page to be on your website. And so I feel that you do. And again, don't get caught up here. We're talking about being able to do it yourself pretty quickly, or paying, or paying somebody a small amount of money to do your website and logo for you. I mean, nowadays it's so simple to do it yourself with AI. It's so cheap if you want to pay somebody else to do it. So, there's really no excuse. I wouldn't be too focused on if I need a website. I would just make it happen regardless and just make sure that you have one. Let's see here. Chris is asking, how important is a business name in the beginning? I don't think too much about the business name. What I try to do is make the business what it is. I try to make it very clear in the name what the company is. Also for SEO purposes and domain purposes. So that's what I'm thinking about when I decide to name a business. I'm thinking about the SEO of what people are going to type in to find that. What are people typing in that industry? Even looking at the Google Analytics of how many people search for these keywords and stuff. And doing things like one of my real estate companies is, Miami Real Estate Agency. And so when people are typing in Miami Real Estate Agency, it's the first thing that comes up because it's Miami Real Estate Agency. It's literally right there in the domain. So even though it's not a .com, it's still the exact wording of what people are typing in. And that's why we decided to name it that, right? So that's just an example of when I'm thinking of names, that's kind of where I'm going, especially if it's going to be something where we're doing a lot of stuff online. I'm kind of thinking about SEO and what the domain would be and trying to make it clear in the name what the business is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much. What I'm talking about here is more like long-term, like I said, SEO, getting a good SEO return and things like that. That's going to happen down the road and it takes time. At the beginning, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I would name it. I would, of course, Google everything, make sure there's no one else doing that with that name. Most importantly, make sure that the social media handles are open so you don't have to do a weird social media handle for each different platform. You should check the major platforms and see, does somebody already have this username? Because you don't want all your usernames to be different and you don't want them to have to be, not the exact name. You want to find a name where you can get the .com, you can get the social media handles, and everything can be uniform. So you should start there. Don't shoot yourself in the foot by naming it and then trying to figure out how you're gonna, you got to put something at the end of your social media handles, or your website, you got to buy the .net because somebody already has the .com. These are the things you should be thinking of before you name it. And I think that's the biggest problem with names, is that people don't think about this till after they have a name of their company. And at the end of the day, those are the first things you need to choose. So when you think of a name, you need to Google it, see what's going on, if anybody has it, searching for anything that would come up when people Google you, right? Because that's what they're going to Google when they Google your company. So they're getting all those results. You want to be seeing what they're seeing. And then, again, the social media handles. Go to social media. Does somebody have these social media handles already, or are they available for you to use? Those are the biggest factors in choosing a name, in my opinion. Let's see. Natalie's asking, can social media replace a website? Well, it depends on what you're doing, right? I think it depends on the type of business. Some people can survive more heavily on social media, but most people who are selling something online need some type of, landing page, right? So, I guess yes and no. So it might work for some people, but again, it's so easy and quick to make a website. I would just make one. Let's see. Mark is asking, how do I look professional without a big brand? Yeah, just look professional. Have a nice professional logo. Have a professional looking website, and just make sure that everything looks professional, sounds professional, and like I said, there's shortcuts such as getting friends and family to give you some good reviews, to have some good reviews to look bigger. Joining the Better Business Bureau, that's a shortcut straight to an A+ rating. Right, you get the logo right away and get an A+ rating, and that makes a lot of people feel more comfortable and like you're a bigger company than you may be. So there's certain shortcuts to it, but the look is really everything. I mean, that when you're searching for companies right off the bat, if you Google a company and then you click on their website and they have a old looking logo and old website that looks like it was built in the 90s, you're skipping right past it. Right. So the new, clean, modern, functional website is important, and it's very cheap and easy. And so that's why it's even more important now. Right. It used to be kind of hard to have, you'd have to pay a web person a decent amount of money to make you a nice professional website. And nowadays it's literally, you could do it yourself almost instantly, or you could pay somebody a very small amount of money to do it for you. Let's see here. Olivia's asking, when should I invest in branding? Well, I think that's just different for every business. I think to invest in branding is usually just something when you're larger, I would say. Just when you're starting out a business and when you're growing and trying to scale up, every dollar matters, and every minute of your time matters. And focusing on branding just doesn't have enough of a direct return in those early stages. All right. Jordan's asking, what's the minimum setup needed to start selling? I mean, nothing technically. You could just sell something in person to somebody. But I would say the minimum to start selling to the masses is just a logo and a website and, obviously a payment processor, PayPal or Stripe or whatever you're using, and your social media pages. That's really all that's needed. Brianna's asking, what if I want to change my brand later? Well, I think that's up to you. I, again, would focus on creating the name you want from the start. I would say that changing it later probably is a sign that you didn't do your research at first, right? So changing it later means you probably found another company that has that, or you can't get your website that you want, or your social media that you want, or there's some kind of issue with the name. Make sure to do your research first. And it's amazing to me how many people start a company and not have Googled the name first, that also haven't checked social media first and see if somebody has that social media name. Those are the two biggest factors today. Is, do you have your real .com website, not like a .net? And so when they go to the .com, it's somebody else's company. Do you have your .com, and do you have your social media handles? If you don't, the name is a problem, and it should be changed now as opposed to later. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Remember, if you're looking to start or grow your business, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com, get the book. It can help you do it yourself. If you want to be a little bit more hands-off and you want to have my team handle that for you, you can go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com, and my team can actually start and grow your business for you. Everything from the LLC paperwork to logo, website, social media campaigns, all that kind of good stuff. So yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com if you'd like to have my team help you out, or if you'd like to do it yourself, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com and get the book, and it can help you with that. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode of the Founding Without Funding podcast.